Once in a while, I run across a story that grabs my attention from the very first moment that I hear it. One such story started with a tabloid headline published on November 14, 1989. The headline read as follows: 1950s airliner lands with 92 skeletons on board. You have to admit, that is a catchy headline. But what was it all about? The answer to that question requires a little refresher on Einstein's general theory of relativity, along with perhaps a healthy dose of skepticism. The story begins in West Germany on September 4, 1954. Santiago Airlines Flight 513 took off from the city of Aachen and eventually headed out over the Atlantic Ocean. Nothing unusual so far. The Lockheed Super Constellation aircraft carried 4 crew members and 88 passengers. Everything was normal and no problems were reported by the crew. That's when things got a little strange. The plane simply disappeared from radar without a word from the pilot. No contact, no distress call, nothing to indicate any problems. There were repeated attempts to contact the flight, and when that failed, planes were dispatched on a search and rescue mission. But Flight 513 was never found. It seemed to be just another tragic case of a plane crash where the cause of the accident would remain unknown and the plane would never be found. It seemed to be the end of the story for Flight 513. That is, until 35 years later. On October 12, 1989, the missing aircraft made an approach to Porto Alegre in Brazil, circled the airport, and made an unscheduled landing. While Flight 513 approached the airport and landed, the crew did not make contact with local air traffic controllers. The airport authorities were understandably confused. The airplane was old, but still obviously serviceable. But Santiago Airlines had gone out of business in 1956. No one had a clue why this plane had just landed. And there was an ominous silence from the plane, which sat idling on the runway. The authorities got no response when they banged on the door and tried to get the attention of the crew. When they finally broke into the plane, they were horrified by what they found. Everyone on the plane, including Captain Miguel Victor Curry, was dead. And not just dead, they were very dead. The people that broke into the plane found the skeletons of all 92 people aboard. And even more bizarre, the skeleton of the captain was still in his chair with his hands on the controls, appearing to be waiting to taxi to the gate. The investigators were understandably shaken by the sight. Of course, the news spread like wildfire, and soon there were many theories on what happened to Flight 513. Some said it was a hoax, and others insisted there was a paranormal explanation. The Brazilian government investigated the incident but refused to deny or confirm the circumstances surrounding the flight. Aviation officials would only confirm that the aircraft appeared out of nowhere and landed safely. Next came the inevitable accusations of cover-up. Researchers from all over the country requested access to the investigation data, but they were all refused by the Brazilian government. Soon the general public, as well as the scientists, began clamoring for more information, insisting that the public had the right to know the truth. One of the more interesting theories to explain what happened to 513 was that back in 1954 it encountered a time warp during its flight. That brings us back to Einstein's theory of relativity. Einstein's theory described how mass affects not just space, but also time, and that they are interconnected. And as famed physicist Stephen Hawking explained, it is a theory not only of curved space, but of curved time as well. Scientists have long speculated that in particular places space could curve so dramatically that it would warp back onto itself, affecting not just mass, but time. This is the theory that led some to believe that Flight 513 was caught in a time warp, which resulted in the flight departing in 1954 and not landing until 1989. One retired physics professor believed that it was a crime against science to continue to deny access to the details of the flight. He stated, "If this plane did enter a time warp and there is evidence to prove it, the entire world should be told. Something like this could change the way we view our world and alter science as we know it." However, no proof has ever been provided that authenticates or disproves the time warp theory of Flight 513. Some even say that the entire story was a fabrication. Maybe it was. The world is full of unsubstantiated conspiracy theories. But we also know that many government cover-ups really do happen. So what was it? A crazy urban legend? Or an intentional cover-up? I guess we'll never know for sure.